What's up, everybody? This is Hater Radio. My name is Chris McLean. I'm here with my co-host Ian Gibson. How are you?
I'm doing really good.
So it is officially the CFP Championship game preview. This is the last regular episode of the season. A little bit of thank you Jesus moment because we've worked so hard this year to bring you all of our analysis, all of our research that we do on these games. And it wouldn't be this last game if it weren't for the research that I did. I don't know exactly what you did, Ian, for research, but I went back and I looked at 3 games each for both Indiana and Miami, and 2 of them, I can't remember which ones. I think it was both the Ohio State games. I watched the full games where it's no no condensed game. Like I actually watched every single play, and it's a ton of work. I will admit this is a labor of love that we do each episode, week in, week out. Throughout the season, me and Ian put a ton of work into this stuff, and we're passionate about college football, and we hope that with what we do that you will be, as informed as you can be about these other teams. And I think that was my whole goal with creating Hater Radio was I remember back in 2013, 2014, when Florida State was good, their fans that I would interact with just didn't know anything about other teams. And it was kind of disheartening because I was like, how do you guys not know about what TCU does or Baylor does at the time? And it was kind of frustrating because I'm like, you say you're a fan of the sport, but you really only watch it for your specific team. You don't actually know anything about any other team. And it was kind of, what motivated me to do this. I just felt like I watched the sport enough. I mean, I always watched, especially SEC games, but even big time Big Ten games and Big 12 games. And now that I've moved out here, Pac-12 games before the conference disbanded a bit, I just felt like good football is good football, no matter where it is, no matter who's playing it. And I just felt like with what we do is we talk about it and we discuss it in I don't know how to describe it. It's just, I come from a background of a sports law background and working in college athletics and also playing semi-pro for a couple of years. And then Ian comes from a background of working in sports, working, he did the videography work for USF in Tampa, and now he's working for a minor league baseball team as the technical director. So we have a little bit of a background in sports, and we just felt like, I don't know, when I first started doing this, it was just on my own. I was doing it, just an audio podcast. And Ian came on in 2019, I believe. And we've expanded into a video playback, or video instead of just audio. And now we've come to this, and honestly, it feels like we're doing quite well with the numbers, just what I can see. And I feel good about things. I feel good about where this is going. And so what we try to do is just show how passionate we are about college football with our analysis, how we look at these things. Throughout the year, we will discuss about 15 games a week, and we go over those games and break down the film the day of on Sunday to then discuss those games. So I feel like, with that being said, our whole breadth of knowledge has given us a leg up on most people, because I feel like we look at everything in totality instead of just being able to hyper focus on the 4 teams that we do cover, but we look at the whole national scope of college football in its totality. So with that being said, let's jump into it. Ian, I'm going to give you the honors. Give me your breakdown of the Indiana Miami National Championship game in Miami.
Yeah, so this game, obviously, as hyped as hype can be, Miami is coming in with all the momentum in the world. 3 straight wins. And really the defense has been clicking on all cylinders, and the offense has been timely as well. It's really been night and day from what we've seen with Miami in the regular season, because there were times they looked very vulnerable, especially with those losses to like Louisville and SMU. But even games against the Gators and Florida, like Florida was a really bad team and they were still hanging in there. But the offense has been able to step up when it mattered, and we saw that towards the end of the year. After that SMU loss, when it was they were down 2 losses, effectively eliminating them. Not at that point we knew, but it was really a long shot from the ACC championship. They were like, look, we got to prove that we need to be in the playoff. And by the grace of the selection committee, they did get in. But you got to remember, after that loss, they beat Syracuse 38-10, blew out NC State 41-7, pulled away from Virginia Tech, and then had an emphatic win against Pitt to end the year. And then they go on the road to Texas A&M. Very ugly, very defensive struggle game, but they got the jump on Texas A&M when it counted, and they won 10-3. Same thing with Ohio State, and same thing with Ole Miss. Here's the thing with Miami. They are as opportunistic as I have seen as a team, and they take advantage of mistakes. Now, you can say the same thing about Indiana, but what I have seen from Miami, especially from the defense, is that the defense does a fantastic job of setting up the offense, and then it's up to the offense to carry the load. It was very, very scary, though, these games where this is the interesting thing. Miami still hasn't looked like a complete team yet. And what I mean by that is obviously the defense, we know, will punch you in the mouth, take your lunch money, and will score by themselves if they have to. But the offense still has not really hit that groove. And we've seen it too with, teams like Pitt, the blowout wins they've had, and against other good opponents. Like they played, obviously Notre Dame at the beginning of the year, the offense was able to come up clutch when it mattered. And I think that is the thing too, is that they do, when it came down to it, that fourth quarter, that's when the offense woke up. But they did leave a lot of points on the table. I remember last show I said Miami should have won this game handedly. It should not have come down to the last second. But that does say something that, look, take it for this. If it is a close game, Miami knows how to win these games. They've been in these games all season. But again, if the offense can produce, if Carson Beck and the offense convert on these high percentage passes, because they had really good drives that they were settling for field goals against Ole Miss. So if you convert those to touchdowns, especially against a team like Indiana, which we know they're going to have to, then absolutely they have to get the jump on that and take it while they can. The other thing I wanted to note too was, this was my bit of research. Obviously, I researched both teams and of the regular season, but me, the historian, I wanted to do some research. I'm gonna be real. I didn't go too deep with Indiana because, frankly, there isn't a lot of championship history because they've never won one.
Yeah.
But with Miami, so here we go. Miami, obviously, the 80s and 90s were dominated by them appearing in national championship games. But the track record of them potentially winning a national championship is not as fantastic. Now, they do have the 5 national titles, but a lot of people forget there was the 1985 Sugar Bowl against Tennessee where they lost, where that one they were ranked number 2 in the country, and Tennessee was number 8. So if they won that game, there was a chance they could have been, the number 1 team in either the AP or Coaches Bowl. Famously, the 1986 Fiesta Bowl, which was the ipso facto kind of first pseudo-official national championship, where they lost that one to Penn State. Then they won, in the Orange Bowl against Oklahoma. That one was another 2-1 matchup, and they won that one. And then 1989, they beat Alabama in the Sugar Bowl. And then 1991, they beat Nebraska in the Orange Bowl. But again, the thing to note here, Nebraska was number 11. Bama was number 7. So I'm not saying I'm not knocking Miami, but you got to remember, these national championships came in a period before we had official national championship games. Now, When we did have the coalition, 1993, when they played 1 versus 2, Miami was number 1, Alabama was number 2 in the country. In the Sugar Bowl, they lost that game. And then in 1995, in the Orange Bowl, same thing, 1 and 2, national championship, Nebraska beat Miami in that one. And then, of course, 2001, that historic team won the Rose Bowl against Nebraska. And then, the 2002 national championship, the controversy with Ohio State. So, in total, what was that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 losses to their 5 national championship wins. So if you want to be kind of a cynic, they're at 500 in championship games. So It's not the most, and even in the Orange Bowl, yes, they've only lost 1 Orange Bowl, but if you want to count the official 1 versus 2, because that 1983 game, even though they did win the national championship, they were number 4 in the country at that point. If you want to count that, then they're 2-1 in the Orange Bowl, or 1-1 when it's 1 versus 2 in this situation. So there's been a lot of talk about, it's in the Orange Bowl, there'll be an advantage, that kind of thing. It's in Miami's home thing. History doesn't say that, though, honestly, especially in these moments, because that's the thing is, they say, teams that have been in championships have, the experience of the pedigree, even if it's been years removed. We know how good Miami is. But like I said, they're a 500 at, they've been at 500. Now, credit, 5 national championships is insane for that time period. And now they go into back home against Indiana, and they have all the momentum in the world going for them. Now, what they need to do, because we have seen Indiana just bulldoze through everybody. We thought maybe, especially the Oregon game, we thought, okay, one of these teams are going to catch them. Not like catch them, but at least like put some like scare into them. Really, there's only been, 2, 3 close games this year for Indiana. There was the Oregon game in Eugene, which they pulled away in that one. And then there was Penn State, which, hindsight is kind of baffling. And then the Big Ten championship. All the other games have been
Iowa.
I'm sorry?
They had a close game against Iowa. It was 20-15.
Iowa, okay, so you get 4. Okay. Well, Iowa's defense. So that's the consistent thing here, is that all of these teams had really good defenses.
Yeah.
Now, credit, Oregon then did get blown out in the Peach Bowl. So Indiana probably knew how to beat them that time. They haven't seen Miami's defense. They haven't seen this pass rush. And it's going to be very, very, very important for Miami to not, give the running game as much leverage as they have, because that is what the key has been in this playoff. When the run game has been going for Indiana, it makes it that much easier for Mendoza to find the open wide receiver deep and hit him deep. And if it has to be, Mendoza, we know how good he can be on these passes when he, it's like 3rd and long. He can convert those. The wide receivers, like I mentioned last show, I have never seen so many wide receivers win 50-50 balls where it looks like it'll be either incomplete or a catch, and they catch it every time. So he trusts his wide receivers, and I think it's important for Miami with the secondary to play more press coverage, maybe get like a bump or 2, get the guy, like guys like Cooper, bump him at the line of scrimmage so that they're not immediately blowing past you, and then have, one of the, free safeties come in as a, the zone, like cover 3 cloud. I forget the exact, I'm not the coach here. But have a free set. This is where we need Seth.
Yeah, that's true. We'll have, and mind you, everyone, we'll have Seth on Monday for the react, hopefully on
awesome. He does this way better than I do.
Yeah.
That should be Miami's game plan. Play more press coverage and have the safeties kind of play more like zone, like cover 3, shall we say, so that you're not getting anybody behind you. You need to have these guys play in front of you, because this is the thing with Miami. Their pass breakups, if it goes down to a 50-50 ball, they will do whatever they can to get that ball out of your hands. So I think that's going to be the key. More more press coverage and making sure the run game is not running through them. Now, easier said than done. You can try this all you can, but until you face this engine of an Indiana offense, it's tough. And that's the thing. If they can limit the run game here, because I know there's a lot of talk with Mendoza, obviously Heisman Trophy winner, but if they can get the run game to where they're only averaging 2-3 yards a carry and they're making it 3rd and 7, then it's more likely you're going to force a fourth down because of the long passes. Make sure drag routes, out routes, any of those you're not getting beat by. Now, from Indiana's defense, now for Miami's offense, Indiana's defense, we just saw with these really good quarterbacks. Say what you will about, Ty Simpson, very good quarterback at Alabama. Julian Sagan, again, at Ohio State, really good, very accurate quarterback. And same thing with Dante Moore. So they have faced 3 solid quarterbacks in a row, and each time they have held them in check. Probably the best one was Sagan in the Big Ten championship, but even then, there wasn't like a lot of big hitters. That is the thing I think is going to be crucial here is if Indiana can continue to limit the big plays. So this is where it's going to count on a lot of misdirections, maybe rely on the run game, make Malachi Toney the, primary playmaker.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting to see how Miami attacks this Indiana defense because, again, that defense is just as good as the offense, and they can easily help out. Like I mentioned how Miami helps out their offense, Indiana does the exact same thing, getting them in scoring position. So we're going to see how Indiana can do attacking, getting pressure on Carson Beck. This is what I think would be a wise move, is having more bootleg plays, make Carson Beck move in the pocket. So that way, or at least having kind of similar to what they did in that last play against Ole Miss, have the flow of play go to either the right or left side of the field and either have, Toney on a dump route or just tell Beck, look, if nobody's open down there, you run. So then you're at least Indiana's going to have to sacrifice a linebacker. Let's speak English here, Ian. So Indiana is going to have to sacrifice a linebacker for a spy position for either Toney or Beck. And then if you're going to throw screen passes or give Toney the ball and it's a one-on-one with him and a linebacker, that's a good matchup for you if you're Miami, honestly. I get as good as these linebackers are for Indiana, you're going to want your playmakers to make plays. So that's going to be the key, I think, is how they will attack, especially in these passing plays, getting the flow of one play either on bootlegs or have the routes go to the right or the left and either have Beck, if nobody's open, route out, and we're going to see how the defense adjusts from there. Adjustments are going to be absolutely crucial going into halftime. I think the key is here, and I've said this with Miami, you have got to keep this game close. You have to. You have to do whatever it takes, even if you're not winning, make it at least a one-possession game or at least a 10-point game at worst. Because if you go down more, like if it's a 14-7, 3-possession game, I haven't seen anybody come back against. That's the thing. We haven't seen Indiana let up off the gas in any of these games. All the times they have won or even won close, it wasn't like a team was furiously coming back. That we kind of seen with Miami. Ole Miss came back against Miami. Same thing with SMU and Louisville. So that's going to be the key is you have to keep Indiana close because if they pull away, there's no history to say you're going to catch up with them because Indiana doesn't do that. I think, too, this will be a well-coached game. Obviously, these are two of the best coaches in the country. Chris Paul has done an amazing job turning around Miami. And, broken record, Signetti, one of the greatest turnarounds up there with K-State in the 80s and 90s with Bill Snyder with what he's done with Indiana. And now they're at the biggest stage and have the chance to do something amazing. So with that, the other little tidbit, if Indiana can pull this off, they will be the first-time national champions since the 1996 Gators. Ever since then, a team that has won the national championship has won their second, third, fourth, you name it. There has not been a first-time national champion since 1996, and I think Indiana gets it done. I think with Indiana's defense and with how well the offense has been and the fact that Miami's offense and in a lot of these games have not been able to convert on weaker defenses is going to be the key here. I think, like I said, even if Miami keeps it close, Indiana's been in close games too. Both of these teams are built for the moment, and we're going to see who shows up. But I like Indiana in this one. They haven't proved me wrong since, and I'm going to take the Hoosiers. And I'm going to go with let's do a 30-24 win for Indiana.
All year we have talked about Indiana. I mean, we talked about Indiana last year And it's not like we're the only people that did. I mean, it was evident throughout all these games the last 2 years that there was something building in Bloomington. You could just tell. There were games where they just annihilated teams, and it didn't even look like the two teams were playing the same sport. And yeah, there were close games this year. And I went and rewatched the Iowa game, and I rewatched the Penn State game. And they struggled in those games. I think, fans of Miami and some people want to discount how good of a defense that Iowa and Penn State have. And, Penn State, they fired their coach, but there was still talent on that team. Nick Singleton and Katron Allen are the two best running back tandem. It's the best running back tandem in the entire country. Like, it's been said that for the last 2 years. That's not hyperbole. That's just truth. And, in that game, specifically in the Penn State game, Singleton went off on a couple of plays. He had like a 60-yard run that got him to the 1 yard line. And then he had like a little dump off that went for like 20 yards and a touchdown. So Singleton basically willed Penn State to that win, regardless of how bad their quarterback play was at that point, because Alar was already hurt. But Mendoza took over in that game, and he took over in the Iowa game. Really, like Surratt, he didn't even play in the Penn State game. That's another thing that you have to keep in mind. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I've looked at this team all year, and I feel like the best thing to say to encapsulate this game is that both these teams play similar styles. They like to run the ball. They're efficient with their quarterbacks, and they play really stout defense with a lot of pressure on the opposing team's quarterback. I just feel like Indiana does it better than Miami does as a totality. I think Miami does a lot of things well. Obviously Bain and Mesidor are two of the best D linemen in the country. Their DBs, Miami, are pretty good. Keontae Scott and the other guy is what is his name? Jacoby Thomas. Those guys have been really good, made huge plays. Then you have freshman Bryce Fitzgerald, who has 6 interceptions, which is kind of remarkable for a freshman. But I will say the weakness of Miami is probably their linebacking core. It's not something that really stands out a ton. They mainly get their pressure from their D-line, so they don't have to blitz too much with their linebackers. Their linebackers don't have a ton of tackles. But I will say that Carson Beck is also a liability. And I know, people are like, yeah, he's done well the last couple of games, but he still had an interception last week. And he has had multiple games with bad interceptions. So, like, he has 11 for the year. That's not a good number. He had a bunch last year with Georgia as well. So it's a bit of a trend that he continues to have a lot of interceptions. The fumbles, Indiana, only has lost 1 fumble all year, I believe, and that was in the Old Dominion game. And so that's something that they've been lucky. They got 2 fumbles in the Oregon game where they were able to pick them back up. So they got lucky there. And same thing with Miami in the Ohio State game. Malachi Toney fumbled the ball twice and it bounced right back to him. So they got lucky there. I will say something that stands out to me as far as maybe a difference maker in this game. Indiana is able to get 3 punt blocks this year. 1 against Iowa. They had 1 against Oregon, and I don't know where the other one was. But that's a huge difference in the game. It gave them a short field in that Oregon game, and they scored shortly thereafter. It makes a difference, little things like that. I think the other thing that I've noticed is the average for Brown and Fletcher is like 4.87 per rush between the two of them. And then between the two of Hemby and Black for Indiana is 5.31. So again, they like to run the ball, Miami, but Indiana does it better. That's just a truth of the matter. And I feel like they want an efficient quarterback in Beck, but he makes mistakes. Mendoza is that quarterback. He does have 6 interceptions, which is not a small number, but it's 11 is basically double that. So he's limited mistakes. And then in the last 2 games, in the playoff games, he's had, I think, 5 or 6 incompletions to his 8 touchdowns, which is ridiculous. They've had a lot of short fields because of mistakes by Oregon and Alabama. Oregon had a couple of fumbles that they recovered that they were able to turn into points really quick. That's what Indiana can do. They can score really quick. They're very efficient when they have the ball. Their success rate is immense. That's just the thing. They don't give up a lot of tackles for losses. They don't give up a ton of sacks. Mendoza, he's not the most athletic quarterback, but he's still very good at scrambling and getting away from pressure. I would say better than Beck, and probably similar to, I'm trying to think who else he's similar to. Maybe like John Mateer, but maybe a lesser extent. But Mendoza is able to make plays when he can, and then when he can't, he throws it away, which is the super smart thing to do because it's not a negative play. I'm sorry, but if you're making negative plays, you're going to put yourself behind the 8 ball and behind the sticks, and then you're not going to be able to get the first downs that you need. I feel like Miami, with Tony, there'll probably be a ton of screens, and he's been able to break off plays. That happened against Penn State with Singleton, and a little bit with Iowa has a playmaker that they were able to make some plays. So expect Tony to probably get loose a little bit, make some decent plays. Probably not a ton, but, at least enough to move the ball. I think Fletcher still is going to have around 90 yards. And I think Brown is probably going to have 30 or 40. I'm expecting Beck to probably have around 220 yards, roughly around there. And, and I expect Indiana to be able to make plays on defense to keep them behind the sticks and force punts. And, they've played a game like a 10-13 game with Ohio State, and they've played a game with Oregon where they blew them out. So I think it's somewhere in between there. I think it's around probably similar to the Oregon game in the regular season where it was a 30-20 game. That's what I'm expecting. I'm expecting Indiana to probably be ahead by 2 scores late, and then maybe Miami scores 1 to make it look closer, and that's probably it. But this Indiana team is being projected as one of the best teams ever, and I don't see Miami stopping it, with their 2 losses. And what I looked at on film was I went back and rewatched the Florida Gator game and the Ohio State game, and the other one I watched was the Louisville game. And in the Florida game, like you said, they kept Florida in it until 4 minutes left in the game. And Florida honestly did not look bad in that second half in the third quarter. And so I don't know, and that Florida team was terrible on offense.
Yeah.
And, the Florida's defense was good at some point this year, but it kind of fell off when they fired Napier. But no, the Louisville game, Miller Moss, he's probably pretty similar athletic wise to Mendoza. He's not as big, but Moss is definitely has some scrambling ability, and he got off those passes really quick. I know that. I saw something the other day where people were talking about the average time of a pass, and like Indiana was averaging like 3 point something. I think it was like 3.13 or something like that. And then like Ole Miss was like 2.63. So I will say that they need to get the ball off quickly. I will agree to that. But as far as you know, the I don't know, Mendoza, he's going to have to get the ball off quickly, and you know, expect pressure from Bain and Mesidor, of course. But I feel like that's the other thing I wanted to talk about. The last thing I'll bring up was two things. EJ Williams. Now, this is the fourth option for Indiana that I've not seen a ton, but he has 6 TDs for the year, and he's 6'4", pretty good hands of what I saw, and could be someone that makes some plays that we're not thinking of, especially if they have a four wide set. But again, the other 3 guys, you got Surratt, you got Cooper, you got Becker. Those 3 guys are studs, and Becker has been playing out of this world ever since the Ohio State game. And you know, I look forward to that matchup with their DBs, because I think, you know, Miami is somewhat all right with their DBs, not as probably a plus as some other teams, but I feel like Indiana with their grouping matches up well against Miami's grouping. And then the last thing I wanted to say is the middle 8. Now, I went back and looked at the games that I looked at, and the middle 8 for all those games, it trends toward Indiana. There is, you know, a bunch of it where Indiana scores a touchdown, field goals, and then, you know, in the Penn State game, forced a fumble and got an interception. In the Ohio State game, they scored a field goal and a touchdown. In Miami's situation, they gave up a touchdown to Ohio State and they missed a field goal. And then in the Ole Miss game, they gave up a field goal, but they also scored a touchdown. But it just was like, and then in the Louisville game, they gave up 3. And so it's just, it looks like it's favoring Indiana here, just in the games that I watched, these specific ones. And I didn't do a whole look at the whole season. It would be kind of a pain in the butt to do all that. But, you know, it looks like Indiana wins the middle 8 pretty regularly. And that's a huge advantage, especially when you're, which I think Cignetti does a lot, is he defers and kicks off because they get the ball at the half. And I think that's the smartest thing to do, is get the ball at the half, because then it's like, if you have the ball last at the end of the half, you can double up, and then you go from, they don't even have the possession, and you go up 14 points by the time they get the ball back. You know, winning that middle 8 is huge. I know a lot of Florida fans always talked about it with Napier, and it was a huge problem. You know, it's something that is crucial to the game. It really is, where some teams lack the focus at the end of the half and then are not as super focused at the beginning of the half of the second half. So it kind of causes problems for the rest of the game. So Cignetti is super laser focused on this game. He always is. Like you said, he's the Death Star. He's inevitable. And I feel like Indiana's going to win this game. I know you gave the history, and I get it. Like, history matters, and we should be looking at that stuff. But at the, you know, this game on Monday, it's going to come down to who does the details best. And I feel like Indiana does the details best. And that's all I got. You got anything else to add?
I mean, yeah, I already mentioned it, the 96 Gators being the last team to win their first national title. So it has been a long time coming. And the last time, like, a team that has won a national championship, I would say after, like, just a long time, was probably 2010 Auburn. It's been, like, every national champion since then has had, you know, recencies, 70s, 80s, 90s, where they won a title before that. We haven't seen a team since, like I said, 2010 Auburn, because their last national championship was, like, 1958.
Yeah.
Indiana has never won one. So we haven't seen a situation like this
Yeah.
in college football in a long time, because it's usually Alabama, Clemson. I mean, yeah, Clemson won a national title, but that was in the 70s, and that was a long time.
80s.
80s,
It
sorry.
was like
Yeah.
sometime in the 80s. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, very, it's just, really awesome to see, especially with Indiana, this turnaround. Because it is, like I mentioned, the only other thing I could compare this to in college football was when Bill Snyder took over Kansas State in the 80s and 90s and turned them into a power, because they were just beyond miserable at that point and got them to winning Big 12 championships. But this is insane to see how fast this program has turned around.
Yeah, because I don't know what the record was 2 years ago, but I'm almost positive I saw it was like a 2-win team.
Yeah.
That 2-win team to then 2-loss team the next year to undefeated. I mean, the only other one was close as UCF in 2015 and 2017.
Yeah.
Because they went winless to like 7-6 to like undefeated in 2 years. So it's very similar, and it's impressive, honestly. I mean, there was a lot of chatter right after the game talking about how they're cheaters because they're how good they're doing, and it's like
I said, when you know you've made it.
Yeah, exactly. You must be doing something well if is everyone accusing you of cheating. But that's the show. Do you have any more? Because I'm done. I'm ready to watch.
Yeah, that's everything I've got research wise and all that. Like I said, Miami's technically has a better record in Orange Bowls, but it's not as illustrious and spotty clean as other bowl game histories are.
All right, that's the show, y'all. I'm excited for this game. It should be a lot of fun. Monday around the end of the third quarter, expect to see me, Ian, and hopefully Seth Varnador from Pod by the Bay and Varnador Films on during the championship game. We will just live react, whatever. You can come on, comment, come hang with us, talk ball. We'll do that until the end of the game, and that'll be our last show. We don't run a show during the season. We only run during the off season. So this is it. So once we hit this show, we are dormant for 6-7 months. So we need a break. We need to be able to recoup and come back to enjoy the sport that we love. So so join us on Monday. It'll be sometime around the end of the third quarter, and we'll jump into it. We'll talk about the game, talk about college football, a little USF with Seth, little Florida maybe. But check us out at haterradio.com for all of our articles. I might put out an article. And then, Ian, what are your socials before we go?
Yeah, at Twitter, it's at G5Gibson, and at YouTube and Instagram, it's at G_Gator_G.
And for Hater Radio, just type that in for all of our socials. That is the show, everyone. We will see you on Monday. Have a good weekend. We'll talk to you then.